Okay, welcome to the Hashtopolis live Q&A session. I am WinXP5421, and this is mainly going to be an impromptu discussion about the Hashtopolis project. We are here to answer your questions about the distributive hash cracking wrapper for Hashcat, known as Hashtopolis. And we are joined with our resident code whisperer, Sane, as well as the elusive bit flipper, Hops. So if you guys have any questions you'd like to get answered, throw them in the chat. We'll answer them as soon as we can get to them. Otherwise, we'll just kind of start with a little bit of the history of the project and what's kind of going on with it. So without any further ado, Sane and Hops.
So, hi everyone.
Hello.
So probably where should we start with history? I mean, like that goes back already a few years.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I think CSP started, we did Positive Hack Days was like one of our first official,
Correct, yeah.
like password cracking things. And back then I was using Hashtopolis to manage most of my infrastructure at home and cracking jobs. And I know I was pushing pretty hard for people to kind of use my processing power while I was, at work and things like that. And that's kind of where we really started to dive into Hashtopolis and the idea behind it. And then I think from there, Sane was kind of looking to do some improvements with it and just kind of revamp the way it looked and how it operated to make it a little more usable. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you want to add to that, but
yeah, I mean, like, do you remember how many rigs you had back in your basement then?
yeah, I had 7 terminals and 26 GPUs, so they were a bit of a pain to manage by hand. So I mean, you definitely needed some kind of way to distribute across that. Otherwise, you'd go insane with what was running on what,
Yeah, I mean, probably. Hops, do you quickly find a screenshot of Hashtopolis, just like that we can have a kind of a comparison, and then I can like start
sure.
on like what my problem back then was, and probably of other people as well.
Just a sec.
I think if you Google for images of Hashtopolis, it would show some. I mean, there are not that many, but at least a few.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a pretty okay one.
Yeah, the first one just has the
Yeah,
terminal on
yeah,
it.
whatever.
That's
Doesn't really
okay.
matter, yeah. Right.
All right, good morning.
Oh, it's
Oh, God damn it.
it's introduction video. Okay. Yeah, just if we
Yeah,
do
like
something
this.
like that. Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. So
Yeah.
I mean, like what Hashtopolis was able to it was able to distribute Hashcat tasks and yeah, it had quite some functionality and also what you for basic tasks you need it for. The thing was just like when you see there's like the menu on the left and you have this like main window where the content then was and there was like one login for everything. So you had one password which was saved as a SHA-1. And
It's industry standard, right?
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, there was not basically like a basic functionality, but there were some things missing, and also I was sometimes kind of triggered by the design because it was just tables and there was not really time spent on any like visibility optimizations or being responsive in size or something like that.
Yeah,
And,
I remember like the back end being pretty easy to overload. There were some expensive calls in there for sure.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, basically I got in touch with Hashtopolis because of WinXP, because he was using it. I didn't have really anything powerful back then. I think just a few GPUs, but like on one computer, so I didn't really require distribution. But what I really loved about the idea is that you have like some manageable system where you can like have the tasks and you see what you have run and what you're currently running and maybe already plan for future runs without like having to prepare your bash scripts or yeah, permanently thinking about which command is the next one right now. So like this concept of
Yeah, you kind of had this
prioritization and everything was already in there.
Yeah, you had a really nice way to manage workflow, whether that was a single computer or multiple. And I really like how, the new program has kind of kept to that, where, we've not only expanded on, being able to queue jobs, but also expanded on how we queue those jobs and grouping out certain machines and stuff like that. Like that's been some really cool stuff.
Yeah. So maybe we should mention again that for the people which joined after we like mentioned it at the beginning, that if you have questions, just put them in the chat and we can then discuss on that. Just that you don't think that we're just like talking and talking without like going to any questions. So we're just waiting for your questions basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else really back then that we were really having problems with when it came to, there was a few things, right? Being able to, concurrently work on like a single task was something that was really difficult to do. And even, to this day, there are some tasks that are hard to kind of chunk out and be like, hey, without some sort of distributive wrapper around Hashcat, like that's not the easiest thing to do. So, back when we were doing, the early days of contests for Cynosure, like, being able to have a bunch of people hop onto a single task when we know we found a pattern, when we know there's cracks here, to be able to have everybody pool their resources and come and go as they see fit, was something that we definitely needed, and it definitely helps out a lot.
Yeah, indeed, and especially like even having people working all over the world together, because basically we were like spread over all nations and everything, so it's not something very local.
Yeah, so having a centralized platform where everyone can kind of manage tasks while we have one shift of people, if you will, going to bed for the night or going to work or whatever, and the other ones that are off work and actively working on stuff. Being able to queue up work, on the go, put like priorities on stuff of like, this is back burner things. Like if all of our tasks that we know are going to get hits, are finished, here's some back burner tasks to just keep things busy and working while we're waiting for things or new ideas to pop in our head.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like for that, the Hashtopolis was working at the point that you trusted like the other members that they're not like doing anything bad to it, because like the access basically was global. So like if you had the password to log into Hashtopolis, you could do everything like changing configuration and stuff, and like that's basically one of the things I was thinking about changing, because I was like, okay, maybe you have a setup where you would like people to contribute, but like not everyone should be able to do everything. And also to make it a bit more viewable, especially in case of a lot of tasks and many hash lists, that there's like some possibility to like improve things. Not really like changing the base concept, but just improving things. And yeah, I mean that was the point where I thought, okay, maybe it's something I can do. And then I just had to check if people would be interested in that.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously I was all for it. Improvements to the program were definitely, slow in the beginning, but once it started to roll out and the project, Hashtopolis really started to take form, it was definitely something really cool. And I'm certainly proud of what it's become, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I started in 2016, I think. No,
yes,
15,
I
I think.
Yeah, I want to say it was like that.
Well,
the rewrite and then we used it for the first
2016,
time.
but yeah.
Yeah, I think I started in 2015, and then we used it for during the next contest. I think it was a Crack Me If You Can.
Yeah, sounds about
Yeah,
right.
probably.
Should also be in the write-up, and then we yeah, we tested it there and also mentioned it in the write-up. And afterwards, I published the first kind of beta version of it so that people could use it as well. And I think that might have been in 2016 already then, like when the rewrite was kind of finished, or at least I was happy that I could release it to like a public. Yeah,
Once you
the
were
code was not
comfortable
perfect
sharing
back
your
then.
code, yeah.
Yeah, like it's the same issue as always.
Exactly.
But like the thing was there was still some like not ideal code in there back then, and the issue with Hashtopolis as well was that the whole server code basically fit into one main file and one small file beside that, like where all the code for the distribution and everything was, and that was kind of hard to work on. So I had to basically like create a structure on how it's coded to make it a bit more maintainable, at least in my eyes. I don't know, like Curly Boy, the original developer of Hashtopolis, maybe had his own idea of developing, but it was not fitting my mind very well, I would say. So I had to like make it a bit different and also making it easier to add other stuff later. And also probably at some point I will be comfortable enough to like publish a 1.0 version, not the 0 point something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what else we were really looking to achieve back then, or in the early versions of Hashtopolis or Hashtopolis. And I'm not really coming up with too many. I know we had a ton of like improvements of just being able to utilize everything that Hashcat had, tool sets and stuff, and being able to kick out certain attacks. In the beginning, Hashtopolis was decent enough where you could find a way to formulate whatever it is you wanted to, but really seeing the addition of stuff like Prince processor and things like that have been very cool work too.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end, I'm at some point I was kind of surprised like how broad it was used, because like people are using it on single machines, people are using it on clusters, and like you have a use case for very different setups, and like I mean for example for some setups with one machine, it's basically just kind of a manager or like on top of it that you can create your tasks, queue it, and so on, and for clusters, then it's really the distribution aspect which comes into place.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's also been
running it on a single machine is kind of fine, because you have a kind of log what jobs you have done on which list, etc. So that's
Yeah,
kind of easy to
exactly.
keep track on what you've worked on.
Yeah, you have the whole history, and you don't have to like manage it yourself, and also you can even like share your single machine with other people and control the access to that without like giving them command line access directly.
Yeah,
Only
it gives you
indirectly.
really nice.
But yeah.
It gives you really nice flexibility too. Like if you start with one machine, and let's say you end up coming up with a task that you require more, and you end up saying, oh well, I'll get another machine. It's super easy to add another one.
Yeah.
So not only is it a nice way to organize stuff, it also gives you that flexibility to move over to, okay, now I have a second machine, or I don't have enough space in my certain case, or not enough PCIe lanes, whatever. You don't have to stick with that one single machine, and pack as much power as you can in that single box. You can expand out to as many machines as you want. So whether heat is an issue, or size, or whatever, you can distribute it across a bunch of different stuff really, really easily.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the scalability is very easy there. So I'm like, before the stream started, there was like one mention about like kind of, it's not really an issue of what currently happens. Sometimes is the error on the client that like the connection was close to the server. and we thought like it's worth mentioning in here as well. It's basically an unfortunate issue. Normally, like Hashcat reports, every 5 seconds you get an update on the progress and if like at which position in the task Hashcat is right there, and we use like keeping alive the connection on the client to the server, so it tries to like stay connected to the server. But the thing is that Apache by default closes a connection after 5 seconds. So if there's like a little off time of the client, like being a millisecond too late, the server will close the connection, and this will cause this error to happen. I guess like a lot of you already have seen it before, and like the easiest workaround is just to increase this time on the Apache side to like set it to 10 seconds, for example, and then there will not be any errors again. And then also the question is, should we like move over to the other things we wanted to discuss?
Yeah, we can probably move over to I don't know what do you think for future roadmap? What do you think is coming soon? Possibly, what do you think is way into the future? As far as functionality or just kind of things coming up.
Maybe we should also mention the key space issue and increment things, because like these are like the typical problems, because like a lot of people like have the question for future plans. Yeah, when is increment coming, or when? So we can like kind of reason why this will never happen. So I think we should start with the key space, as this also is sometimes confusing, especially for like kind of a new Hashcat users, that there's like a difference between the key space, which you typically think about when you have a brute force task or something, and the key space which Hashcat itself has.
Yeah, I mean, it confused me as well, and I'm a regular Hashcat user, so.
Yeah.
Or a long term, yeah.
As long as you know that there are two different key spaces, then you're already kind of fine, because then you can always think, yeah, is it because of that or because of that? But if you like just think about key space, okay, we test that many combinations and that's our key space, obviously. And then they wonder why the key space Hashcat gives is different. And so the thing is that the Hashcat has its own kind of key space, and the key space there just denotes the like where Hashcat can progress over time and in which parts it can be split into. So the task can be split into maximum the number of key space many chunks, basically. That would not be ideal, of course, but it cannot be split further, even if there would be more candidates tested in total. For example, when you have a dictionary and you apply rules. So the logical key space would be, you have X entries in the word list and you have epsilon rules, so X times epsilon candidates in total. But Hashcat only splits based on dictionary, so its key space is only the size of the dictionary and not the full amount of combinations which are tested. And so that's why there is like this difference, and also Hashtopolis is always interested in the key space which Hashcat gives, because that's the key space which it can split, because it cannot split by anything else, because on that point it relays on Hashcat. Anything else to add to the key space itself? Did I forget something?
No, I think that's pretty decent. I mean, we're talking about two different things that have the same word assigned to them, and it can be kind of confusing. But for the most part, I think you've hit the majority of it. There's a very distinct difference between, the actual combination key space and the Hashcat key space that Hashcat would use internally to distribute work between things. So.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, with that, we can basically come to the most important question, let's say the increment one. Like a lot of people are wondering why the -- increment flag in Hashcat is not working, which is basically, for example, brute forcing from length 8 to 10 in one in one task. Basically, you can give it one command line in Hashcat to brute force all this key space. The issue there is that internally, Hashcat is seeing this as different tasks. So it also differs between the length 8 and the length 9 and the length 10. So it just runs itself basically 3 times for each of the lengths configured. And that's also why you cannot do it in Hashtopolis, because Hashtopolis needs to have one Hashcat task it can distribute, because every task has a key space, and there's no key space over multiple tasks itself. So Hashcat refuses to calculate and give a key space of an increment task. And that's basically the main reason why there is no possibility to have directly increment as a flag allowed in Hashtopolis tasks.
Yeah, that's not likely to change, mainly because it's just how Hashcat was kind of structured. Whether it's a performance thing, things like that, like that's most likely not going to change, and it makes sense that Hashcat would chunk up each character length that it's going to run through into a separate task. So the unfortunate part about it is that's going to be not possible with Hashtopolis, but we've made quite a few additions to Hashtopolis in order to easily add an increment task and have that section out into each, make its own make it different tasks that you can easily add to it to basically make up that increment command.
Exactly, because it's not possible to have it directly in a task. That does not mean that you cannot run any of these attacks. It just means that you have to split it into the basic tasks themselves. So also, for example, another place where Hashcat refuses to calculate the key space is if you give it multiple dictionaries at once, because basically these are also separate tasks for each of the dictionary. Hashcat also will go through them after each other, so it will not work parallel on 2 dictionaries at the moment. So they're also separate tasks itself, and there you just have to split them into each of the tasks. And as WinXP mentioned, there is the possibility that you can import masks files when you have a lot of brute force masks you would like to put into tasks, because you can just you could create just every task on your own, but that would be a lot of click around and filling things.
I could quickly show it. So
yeah, if you want, that's probably
I guess this is a import super task, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and just to clarify with the multiple dictionary things, what Zane is kind of getting at, he's not talking about a combinator attack where you take 2 dictionaries and combine them. He's talking if you were to add a word list to or a folder of word lists to Hashcat, we wouldn't be able to do that as something in Hashtopolis. But combinator and stuff, that's totally fine. Hashcat will totally do a key space for that.
Yeah, good point on that. It's like a combinator attack. You give 2 word lists, but that's a different thing than if you would just give multiple word lists where it should go through and not combine them. Yeah, that's I forgot about that case.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what?
You simply specify each mask on its own line, or I think you can even import one from a file.
No, you just need to copy paste it. I
Okay.
mean, you can open the HC mask file and then just copy over the content. There's no file upload for that.
Well, I guess could be easy to add, but yeah. Anyway, that's how you can create it right now. Yeah, and we see it already created the 3 different separate tasks, which you can apply to a hash list right away. Well, nice name, but and yeah, simple as that. And we have our
and the same applies for if you have a lot of word lists you want to run, for example, with the same rule file. You can do this bulk creation, which is also on the create super task or import super
bottom,
task
right?
page. Yeah, it's just below. Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, yeah.
So you can basically select a base and the iteration file. So the base file will be in each of the tasks, and the iteration file, it will create a task for each of the selected ones from that section. So, for example, if the rule file is something like which would be constant, or if you want to have the same word list with all your rule files, then you can do like both cases and generate such a super task easily without having to create each task manually. I mean, there's not that much.
So just as a reminder to anyone in the chat, if you guys have questions you want them to be answered or concerns, things, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we will happily address them. Kind of have a good discussion about them. So we are keeping an eye on that. So feel free to let us know if you have any questions.
Yes, so we were at the super task. I don't know, maybe Hobbs, you also want to show how it's created? Or...
Sure, yeah. So I guess the example dict will be our base. Oh, probably another rule, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure if there are rules.
Yeah, we don't have any rules, right?
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
a bit
whatever.
bad. I mean, you can just iterate over multiple word lists. We don't need to have a base.
Right, yeah. So we select these two. I hope. Shouldn't this be added here?
No, because the iteration ones you have to like just fill in file, and then the uppercase file will be replaced by each of the dictionaries.
So Eric asks if he's curious to know if how we could use like reporting and things like that within wow, I can't even English. Hashtopolis.
Okay. Didn't you put it in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can jump right to the question just after the.
Yes.
If Hobbs managed to like create a super task properly.
I'm not a user.
So now you can show. I guess you can show it.
The play.
We have
this one.
No, not show. Exactly. So we see like there's ones with example dict and ones with test dict, and then it can also be applied again as every super task.
Then we have really cool names in here, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like this setup was used to test issues which were reported. So
exactly,
like
this is our test instance. So yeah,
WPA and vercrypt stuff to test if there's were issues.
Exactly. So about the reporting, I think Zane, you did a lot of work in this space, right?
So like you mean the reporting of the agents themselves, or I guess it goes in that direction, right? Or how did you?
Yeah, he just states, I'd be curious to know a bit more about how reporting can be utilized. So I think it could either go both ways. So it could go like client based, or possibly like what was cracked and when, how come, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. So maybe let's start on the agent side. Otherwise, just like write in the chat if I'm on the wrong track. Hobbs, if you can quickly check in the agents page if there is some data. Otherwise, we would have to really connect an agent.
Nope, not really.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, like the agent reports the utility of the devices and the temperature of the devices. So that's at least some way where you can see like if your agents are running okay. So in terms for the temperature, you will see like if there is a problem with cooling. So in case the temperature is higher than you would wish it to be or than it should be, and the utility of the devices, it's not a very exact measure because that's just a util value which in case of NVIDIA cards, the NVIDIA SMI reports. So it's also the utility which Hashcat reports. So that's not a utility calculated by Hashcat. It's just a value which is given by the driver. And there you can see in certain cases like if a task is maybe not ideal. So you can see if your utility is very low on most of the agents, you see that there is something wrong with the task, maybe, unless you know that this task is really not ideal and it will always have a low util value. But for example, let's assume a brute force you distribute, because a brute force attack is kind of easy to split, and also it's very easy to like fully use the GPUs. So if you have a brute force task and you see on a specific agent or on all agents that their utility is low, then maybe you should check something. And also if you have a lot of agents, and instead of like checking each agent, it's very easy to have that on the agent's overview. Hobbs, can you quickly show that?
Sure.
It's the agent status. No, it's the drop in the drop down. It's the.
Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, right.
I mean, there is only one agent right now, but you can see like every agent is just a small box with a color, and there you can basically have a simple overview over your whole cluster and see if there's like one agent having a particular issue, or if there is like a general problem with the whole cluster that like it's not really used or anything. And right now the agent is inactive, so that's why it's gray, and otherwise you just have this easy coloring that you can see on one glance if there's an issue. And yeah, that's basically the values which are reported from Hashcat. If you want, like, for the reporting of like what is going on the cluster task wise, I think like the notifications is the key you want to have for your account or for your cluster. Currently, I think there are like 4 or 5 different kind of notifications supported, where you can like get emails or Telegram notifications, or I think also Slack and Mattermost should work, like about certain actions you can configure. And for example, like if hashes get cracked, or if there's an issue with an agent, and so on. So you don't have to monitor the Hashtopolis page itself all the time if you configure such a notification. I hope this kind of answered your question. If not, just like ask again, or like say more in detail what you would like to know.
Isn't there also
So I think
reporting that you can like have a PDF of what
Oh yeah,
has been done?
right. I forgot about that one. Yeah, that's not that. Okay, it's already kind of 1.5 years old, but it's one of the newer features, I guess. So okay, we can also show this one. So for tasks, no, for lists and for health checks, you can generate reports, like to get an overview what exactly like happened to like a certain hash list. So maybe you can just look at one of the very stupidly named hash lists.
Or hash list, okay. Sure. Yeah, maybe this one, or
I think it doesn't really matter which one you choose. At least maybe one which had some tasks.
yeah.
Okay. So there's a possibility that you can like generate a report for a hash list, and if you look down here, we see that some tasks were run on this hash list, and they also cracked some hashes and so on. So to get this information out and like having a certain report of the actions which were done, you can generate a report. There are templates. Basically, there's one template which gets shipped by default, which is called example. It's not really showing much because I didn't have the time to like create a really big LaTeX template to show a lot of stuff, but it just shows basically what could be possible if you like extend that template. So you see that they're basically just all the tasks are listed with their respective commands. And it would also be possible to list all the cracks you get from each task and other information. The template is just very, very easy in this case, but you can place your own templates in the template folder and then select that one to generate a PDF.
I guess you have to use some or know some LaTeX.
Exactly. Yeah, the template is in LaTeX and uses some additional templating language that you can like do iterations and ifs and so on. So like some basic programming possible. But I mean, like LaTeX is the easiest way to have something generating PDFs and also very stable.
Yeah,
The only thing you
totally
need to
agree.
have is like you need to have the LaTeX installed on your server, because otherwise it could not generate it. And the same is also possible
So I
for
think you brought up
Yeah, sorry.
I think you brought up a pretty good point in the last little bit there, where utilization of processing power, like good versus bad tasks. I think maybe elaborating a little more on what exactly we would mean by that, and possible mitigations from that. Like if I have a bad task, how do I make it better? Because it seems like it's something that comes up pretty often is, the performance on this, if I run it outside of Hashtopolis, is way better than what it would be in Hashtopolis. And 9 times out of 10, it comes to, creating a task that would be easily chunkable and distributed properly. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Like most of these things are basically caused by Hashcat, like having a certain architecture, how it runs tasks. And then like if you run the task in a specific way, which Hashcat is not like made for ideally, the distribution also often is very tricky. So one case which comes up pretty often is if you have large hash lists, especially salted ones, because they're like the amount of computation grows with every hash. Is that if you have a large hash list with salted hashes and like a very small dictionary, there's a problem with the distribution. And the reason there is that by default, basically, or like in general, Hashcat takes the hash list, and for every combination from the attack, if that is a brute force or if it's a dictionary with rules, for every candidate, it goes through the whole hash list and checks it against each hash, so with each salt. And the problem there is that it does not split by hash list, it only splits by the input of the attack. So basically, for example, the dictionary. And if you have a very small dictionary, it can only split by this. And also you have to keep in mind that on GPUs, the task is running highly parallel. So if you give it one candidate against like millions of hashes, it will just use one core on the GPU to calculate it against all the hash lists, because it doesn't distribute by hash lists, it only distributes by candidates. And this can even happen on one machine if you just run a task with a very small word list against a large hash list. And if you distribute it, it just gets worse, because then the input of the word list is even smaller. And then that's definitely one of the cases where it's like goes into the wrong direction. And what is possible there's no automated thing to tackle this right now, but basically you can just split the hash list. If you create multiple hash lists and then just run the same task on each of these hash lists, that's already much better in distribution, because then each task you can run on one agent, for example, and you will be completed much faster than if you would try to split the one task against the full hash list. So it would also be a reason, for example, to use the super hash list feature. So you create basically many hash lists with your overall hash list and create a super hash list, so you can just manage it to see how many cracks you had in total of it. Yeah, we don't really have many ideal.
Yeah, I mean, ideally this should be the same hash type, right?
Yeah, this definitely, but also like WPA is not the thing you could combine in a super hash.
Oh, right. Yeah, fair point.
I'm not completely sure, but I think it could be tricky. It might work, but it might not.
Let's like this MD5. This works at least.
Yeah, MD5 definitely works.
So back in the early days of WPA 2, yeah, there was really no issue. But yeah, PMK IDs, I'm not sure. You could totally do a super task with WPA 2 stuff.
Okay.
In the early days, I haven't tried it recently, but you used to be able to.
Yeah, I think it might be that they're just like appended at each other, and this should be possible to read. But for VeraCrypt, for example, it definitely won't work because there you can only
Oh yeah,
give
VeraCrypt, no.
one file per attack.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so maybe like another case where the distribution also is not working very well is also when you have attacks, for example, which incorporate a lot of rules and have only a small word list. Because as I mentioned earlier in the video, the hashcat only splits by word list and not by rules. So that's the key space would be very small in that case. And also, if you have one candidate, it applies all the rules in one core running against your whole hash list. So you see where this is going. It's basically only splittable by the word list. And in case you have this with word list and rules, if you have fast hashes, then typically this isn't a problem because there you don't give small word lists because otherwise you would be finished in seconds. But if you have slow algorithms like some encrypted disk stuff or yeah, I mean, like that's most of the cases, the ones which are really the slow ones. There you could use the -s flag, which was introduced by Hashcat. I think in 5.1.0 it was already introduced. So you can tell Hashcat to like calculate all the candidates on the CPU and afterwards like hand all the candidates to the GPU. And this increases then the key space to the whole combination number. So basically number of entries in the word list times the number of rules. And this is then much easier to split. And because it's mostly useful for slow hashes, it doesn't matter if the PCIe speed is a bit lower because the bottleneck anyway is the algorithm itself, which is very slow.
Yeah, you shouldn't use this feature with NTLM or MD5.
Yeah, I mean, it would just like slow down a lot.
Yeah, and that's where kind of like the rule splitting came in, right? Like that functionality and everything.
Yeah, I mean, like the rule splitting nowadays is kind of obsolete because, yeah, I introduced that feature before Hashcat introduced the -s, so minus uppercase S, to be specific. The thing is that yeah, I introduced it and then Hashcat added it. So nowadays I would just say use -uppercase S and not rule splitting, or like just turn it off because you can just turn it off and then it won't do it automatically. I'm not sure if there might still be some edge cases where rule splitting could be a thing, but for most of the cases, the -s should just fit it. So I see there was the question asked if there are any thoughts on the ability to edit the hash lists after creation. I mean, the thing is that it would be possible, of course, because every time like a task starts from an agent, it downloads the most recent hash list. So if you change that, that would be possible. The thing which I see problematic is that if you imagine you have a hash list and you run a certain set of tasks and afterwards you change the hash list, then this would not be like trackable. You would not see like when did the hash list change, and then you would to keep in mind, okay, for the changes I applied to the hash list, these tasks were not run on it. And
well, it only matters if you add hashes to the hash list.
Yeah,
if you remove them, then it's not a big issue.
Yeah, if you remove them, that's just what is possible with the import pre-cracked feature. So if you have any hashes you cracked somewhere else or you want to have removed, you can use this import button for the hash list. And this even works if you want to mark a hash as found. If you don't want to give the plain text or you don't have the plain text, you just want to throw it out, you can do that because Hashtopolis does not verify hashes. It just takes whatever you give it. So you can basically write a hash in there and say this one is cracked, just colon and type something blah blah in, and it will be removed from the hash list. So that's basically the way if you want to remove hashes from the hash list.
Yeah, what I usually do if I'm removing hashes from a hash list is I will stick with a standard. Like if I'm going to import a pre-cracked hash, in air quotes there, because I just want it to get removed from the hash list, I'd put the hash colon and then I'd set a standard like I would always put found in all uppercase or something like that. That way I know that this one I just threw out and that plain text is not actually legitimate.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I do it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, that if you want to afterwards export the hash list and see which one you basically marked as found, but which were not given the right plain text, that you can easily sort these out. So that's definitely good, something to choose something to enter there. So there's next question is when the next update or patch comes. That's always a difficult question to answer. Since the beginning, the project was kind of running on my free time and running on the free time of others like WinXP and Hobbs helping on certain aspects. It's hard to estimate how much I can work over a certain time on certain issues, and also I have to decide what do I prioritize, which feature is more important to add, and I'm not even completely sure right now what currently is in the branch, or basically in the master, but not released yet. I would just quickly check that.
Yeah, I think basically, this is a free time project. It's always been a free time project and probably will continue to be a free time project. Not to say that things won't happen or move, but it's one of those deals where this is just a free time thing, and we work on it when we can, and whatever happens kind of happens.
Yeah, so I see that I was a bit quiet the last few weeks, and also there was not really anything added or really specific added since the last release. There are some issues open, not really big ones, but some which are hard to tackle and some which aren't. I mean, at the end, what I can sort of say for sure, in most cases, the bugs are the first things which are fixed, and afterwards it depends. Certain issues, I kind of, it's not really possible at the moment to make them easily possible, and I mean, for sure this year, I guess there will be some release after some time, but my personal workload changes every week and going up and down like everyone's, I guess, and also what's coming up in the future is not completely clear for me, so I cannot promise anything, but there will be updates for sure.
Yeah, it certainly won't be dying anytime soon.
Okay, so the question is if there will be a direct that it will be possible to use directly mask files instead of import supertask feature. I'm not sure what should be done to speed it up in that case. So you mean that? So I guess it's meant that if you create a task that you can directly hand it the HC mask file,
Yeah,
right?
I think he's talking about the increment issue, I think.
Yeah, the thing is that the create task page, if maybe Hopstad can quickly show, is already kind of not overloaded, but yeah, there are a lot of things you can already do for a new task, and of course it could be added that you can give it the HC mask file there. The thing is that it's not, this new task page is not made for that case, so basically it would need maybe another new task page for specifically that kind of tasks, and I'm not sure if that's really worth it, because at the end it's creating a super task and then applying it, it's maybe one click more than if you would create a task directly.
Yeah, I mean, using importing a mask file would really be a one-time event. You wouldn't import it again. really. You do it once and then you're able to reuse it as a super task as many times as you want, instead of creating a new one every time.
Yeah, and even if you just reuse it one time, I mean, you can delete the super task right after you started, like you applied it to a hash list. You can just delete the super task again because it's then running, and the super task itself, if you are sure that it will not be used again, you can just delete it.
And no, there is no folding at home plugin.
But yeah, that's maybe something which I also get like asked quite a lot, and that's somehow a bit connected to what is happening on hashes.org as well. It's like we have some hashes there which we would like to run a really crazy brute force on it just to find some really new passwords. And people often ask, is there like a central Hashtopolis where people can contribute, like kind of folding at home, like everyone can like put on his GPU and join some really big task to just like find some new crazy passwords. The main issue there is that there is no way yet we can verify that like a certain key space in Hashcat was run, and it was not faked in that case. So let's say someone receives a task and he kind of tricks the agent in saying, yeah, I completed it, but he didn't do it. So there's no way to verify that, and that's kind of the problem why you need to have at least a little trust in the agents itself, that they are at least running the task you gave them, and that they report properly on the progress and what they found. And that's kind of the main reason why there is like not really a Hashtopolis instance you can just like open to the full public and say, hey, everyone who wants can contribute.
And also,
yeah, so I think one of the main problems with using like the FitCrack project and like Bionic is that you can't trust exactly what the agent is giving you. So in order for you to trust what the agent is giving you, you then have to rerun that with a different agent to verify whether or not it was actually true. There's no way you can actually prove that the whole key space was ran, with clients and agents you don't really, exclusively trust, right? So you have to come up with a way to verify that the work that the client said was done was actually completed and completed correctly. And so that's kind of an issue that is really hard to mitigate without, basically throwing GPU cycles out the window for verification.
I mean, like for verification, you would need to at least do it twice, and then if you have a mismatch, you would have to do it even more.
Yep.
And also,
and
you as a client have to trust the server because essentially it runs a command on your computer. So that's also a thing to keep in mind.
Yep. And then I think as far as Undercover Dog, when he's talking about like benchmarking a task every single time, it's kind of a needed thing unless the task is very small. If the task is very small, you can mark those tasks as a small task, and that way only one single client will be doing a benchmark at a time. One client or agent will get issued that task, and that's it, no more. And benchmarking is a very important part of each individual task, right? So, you have to be able to accurately give a agent a chunk of work to keep it busy for X amount of seconds. So that has to be done each task because the way Hashcat kind of does all of the back end stuff, the way it optimizes things can change between task and task. So we can't just say this is the benchmark for one single agent and use it across everything. Well, you could. It may not be the most optimized way to handle distributing work out to that particular agent.
I mean, there are some cases where you could say, yeah, a benchmark is kind of unneeded. What definitely is something I have on my list to optimize is that if an agent switches from one task to another and then goes back to that one, it currently has to re-benchmark because the benchmarks are not cached if you switch tasks. There definitely it's possible just to save the benchmark for later if the agent comes back to a certain task, and also of course there are cases, for example, if you have fast hashes and you have like dictionary plus rules, like a standard kind of attack, you would always get a similar or very close benchmark each time. There are some possibilities maybe that you can say like, okay, I want to have certain benchmarks cached and then reusing them. It's just at that point there's also the user needs kind of a bit to know if this is a task where the benchmark would be approximately the same or not, and then being able to say, yeah, use the cached benchmark, or no, do a new one because it might be different.
Yeah, all good stuff. Maybe we can move into possibly, future stuff. What do you have on the plate that you think might be coming up ish soon, maybe, or futuristic thinking plans, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot on the list. I'm not sure like what would be like the most important to come, but what definitely would be nice, but it's not one of the easier parts to complete, is that there would be more like actual updating directly on the page itself without having to reload it fully. So if you want to see if a task progresses, you always have to reload the page and see that, and that's something which probably would be more user friendly if that just live updates. And I completely see that like reason why this would be nice to have. And also having some other things where it would just like load partially or load after time. The thing is just that this would require more heavy front end programming, which is not my main like field of competences. Let's say like
or
that.
any of us, yeah.
Yeah, not any of us. So there's like the real big future project would be that we can separate front end and back end completely, and having a front end which runs kind of JavaScript heavy, for example, like Angular, and just using an API on the back end to like get all the data it needs. But this is like something which will not come very fast, or not come unless someone really puts an effort into creating a new UI, which is basically that decoupled from the backend in a way that we can just communicate through an API.
So Undercover Dog says, why doesn't Hashtopolis automatically find already cracked hashes when you import a new hash file?
Yeah, it can if you configure it to do. The thing is that it's turned off by default because this just increases the workload when importing a hash file, especially if you have like a few thousands or a few 100,000s, because it then has to query for all, like through the whole table of all hashes if there is any of these already found, and saving that. But you can turn it on in the server config, that it should check for cracked hashes if you import them. Maybe we can show this setting quickly.
Is this in the configuration, right?
Yeah, it's config server.
And obviously this would be for,
must be here somewhere down. It's I think it's one of the lower ones because it's more kind of a new one, because like the newer ones are always added below. Exactly, it's check all hashes of a hash list on import in case they're already cracked in another list. So if you turn that feature on, it will check all the hashes which you upload through the hash list if they are already cracked in one of the other hash lists, and then mark them already as cracked, so you don't run on these.
But this would certainly add a lot of overhead when you're adding a hash list, for sure. So expect hash list imports to be significantly slower with this.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, it depends on the use case. Like if you have a lot of small hash lists, if you have just a few hundred hashes, floating around in different hash lists, and you just want to be sure that you're not like by accident importing the same hash again, that's definitely something you can turn on, because this will not hurt your performance. But if you have more like multiple millions of hashes, this will hit the performance on the import. It will not hit the performance in any other cases, but just on the import, it will have to do a lot more to check each hash. Yeah.
Is there an export feature for all hashes that are cracked?
So over all hash lists?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
But I think it's on the wish list somewhere that you can, like people asked if there could be like an export of all plain texts of the cracked hashes into kind of a new word list. So basically creating a word list of all cracked hashes and then showing up in files. This is not possible yet, but that's something which can be added, and I think it's on my to-do list for Hashtopolis.
Do hashes cracked from one mode count against new hash list uploads? I think what Bill is getting at with that is if you have two different hash types, and you're uploading a hash list, and he wants to know if it's only going to apply to the MD5s. Like if I upload more MD5s, is it just going to search MD5s, or is it going to search the SHAs, the MD5s, and the B bulletins or whatever?
So yeah, I mean, at the end, what is doing, like on the database itself, it's basically going through the import list and saying, okay, yeah, hash, and then do select from hashes where hash equals what you want to import, and if this exactly matches, it will see if it is cracked or not, and if it's cracked, it will save that. But if it's just a partial match, it won't do that. As far if
so
I remember correctly.
I think it would look over the database as a whole, and it's not going to be algorithm specific, right?
Yeah, it will just like check against all, because they're all saved in the same table. The exception is for binary hashes, which are not checked, obviously, because it's kind of difficult to be sure that this check is correct.
Yeah. Do we have any other upcoming features you want to talk about or hit on or anything like that?
Yeah, maybe something to mention, which is a bit more tricky, is the pausing, which also some people ask if that could be added. So kind of direct pausing, because of course it's possible to like stop the agents or move them to another task. You have multiple options. Either you wait until it finished the chunk and basically completed its current work and then moves over to another task, or if you want to like basically kill it and say now move to the other one. But there's not really like a live pause thing where you can press pause and it will immediately hold all agents, and then you can just say resume and it will start further. That's mostly to the fact that the agent just runs hashcat and then does the stuff what happens during the running, but it will not do anything else beside that if you pause it, because it's you cannot. I mean, technically you could like leave a certain hashcat instance running and start another one and then say, okay, now let's go back to the post one, but this would block your resources. So for example, the RAM on the GPU or the RAM on the host, which is used by one hashcat task would still be used even if you pause the task. So that's maybe something which is not coming up as a direct feature to like pause something, but there might be some actions which like make things more easier, because currently if you want to abort chunks and say, okay, I want to stop that task and I need to stop all the agents to immediately abort, you have to click through all agents right now. So there must be something that you can click, okay, abort all on this task, so that you can with one click stop all agents on that task and say they should move maybe to another one.
Yeah, I think there's like a. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Just say.
Yeah, I think the only real way you can kind of get around that, or kind of a workaround, is do that through like the API of like stopping certain agents and things like that, and which then brings up another like talking point. I don't think we've touched on EvoMog's Python repository for the API.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like you could script it to do through the API, but I think there are a lot of such like small things which can be added to the GPU for kind of mass actions that you can easily
Sure.
apply something to many agents instead of doing it for each of them. And it's yeah, that's something which definitely will come up like in the future.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. Bill also asks, is there a way to warn a user if a task will create a super task larger than a number? You mean like key space wise, maybe?
I think probably more in terms of number of tasks, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Because
okay.
I heard that some
Yeah.
people like by accident created like 30,000 tasks, and that kind of slowed down things a lot. I think there's not something like that, but this could also be added in some way that you can like set a limit in the server configuration, and it will just say, okay, no, that's your limit you set. It would create too many. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is not such a limit right now.
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, great thing to add a GitHub issue about.
Yeah, if there isn't any already, but I think there's not an issue requesting this exactly.
Yeah.
I had something in mind for the future, but I forgot it right now because I had it in mind before the last question.
I was curious if there were any update on the hash search functionality. I know there's an open issue for it, but curious if it was any update on it.
Yes. So yeah, I know there is this open issue that you can search for hashes. I think I didn't fix that so far, but I mean, maybe if Hobbs just can quickly test that on the test instance.
Sure. Yeah.
He can reproduce. But
You have to help me out.
just go on lists, I think.
Oh,
right?
search hash, yeah.
And then search hash, yeah.
Doesn't really
And
matter,
I mean,
right?
it doesn't really matter what you enter, just search by something, because based on what I see from the error message, it should fail anyway. Oh yeah, okay.
Probably error messages are.
Yeah,
are
this you won't see because the
suppressed,
debug
yeah.
is not turned on. But
Exactly.
yeah,
No, the bug is not fixed yet.
it's not fixed yet. But it's not something which I just need to do it. It's not something I need to like track down and find out what's going on. I see that from the error message that's what the issue is. I actually just need to fix it. I mean, I didn't have the feeling that the hash search was like the most important feature, which many people use, but
Apparently it is, yeah.
it seems that it is, yeah. I mean, I can, yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, issues like bugs are like a bit more on the priority than like having new features and something to of course to make it possible that people can use at least what it's there or what should be there and working. Yeah, I mean, I will have to see when I get time and I will fix it. Probably this will not be like a full release, but depending on if there are some other issues issues showing up, I will like maybe do a minor release that just the bug fixes are included there.
I'm trying to think what else has come up. recently-ish that we could touch base on.
Yeah, I think that there are more than one issues regarding prints, but I didn't check these issues like already if like what the problem there exactly is, but there's like someone saying that it's running only on one GPU, but the problem with piping always is that the pipe could be a bottleneck because Hashcat always wishes to have a kind of internal amplifier when running on the GPU, that it can run something on the GPU to have multiple checks in one run on a core. So in that case of this issue, I see that there are no rules, I think. There is a rule file. Yeah, at the end, these kind of issues are a bit harder to track down. But I think that the new preprocessor feature at least makes it possible to like have more flexibility in setting flags also for prints, for like password min, password max stuff, and so on. But yeah, I'm not sure if like many people experience issues with preprocessors, as preprocessors basically is the kind of the newest feature which was added last year. Yeah, I also don't know if anyone like used another command, another preprocessor than prints since then, because yeah, you would need one which at least provides the possibility to have a key space and split that into pieces. But at least the possibility is there. Also, what a feature might be for the future is that like chunks can like be checked a bit more in detail, because like currently for a list you only see like the most recent chunks and you just see the numbers, but there's like not like kind of a lot of things you can manage on them. But there may be also some things you would like to do on them to improve. And also an issue which is definitely on my list, or not an issue, but the kind of a feature, is that the way how the agents are like distributed to a task could be changed as well. Because like right now, it's either you like set all tasks to priority 0 and just assign them manually and then move them over to another task if it's finished, or you just use the priority and then the task with the highest priority just gets all the agents. And unless you marked it as a small task, all agents will jump on the same task. And something which would allow like saying, okay, this task should get 10 agents maximum, and this one should get 5 and not more, and so on, could help to like also distribute that a bit. Because currently it's only possible with the trick of assigning the agents to different user groups and then doing the tasks in different user groups. So they basically don't know that other tasks are around, and that's why they jump on the one specific one. But yeah, it's a bit annoying to set up, and if you want to shift around agents a lot, it's yeah, a lot of clicking.
On the graphical task progress bar, what does the red box around the yellow piece mean? Sorry, I haven't read the wiki lately.
I mean, that's one of the features which is around since Hashtopolis, because even Hashtopolis did that already. Yep. And I think it's not written on the wiki even, so that's a really good question. Yeah. So to answer the question, the red bar around the task, the chunk, means that this chunk was kind of stopped at a certain point, or like crashed on a certain agent, and even if it's later picked up by another agent, or if you fix the issue and let the agent continue, it would just keep this red bar as a kind of let's say reminder that this task at some point experienced an issue. The same happens if the agent, for example, completes a chunk halfway through and then stops for whatever reason, hardware failure or something like that, and another agent overtakes. Depending on what kind of task it exactly is, it is possible that the other agent which takes over does not need to run the whole chunk again, but it can cut off at some point. That's called when it's trimmed. And then the trimmed chunk, which is then basically marked as complete, and the other chunk, which is then sent to the agent to run on, also gets this red lines around it, just as a sign that it was trimmed. But as long as the task then gets completed, these red lines don't mean basically any bad thing. It's just kind of an informational thing.
Yeah, long story short with that, if you can try and gracefully shut down your agents instead of just stopping them, that's always for the better.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, you waste the least amount of time or of power if you like let it complete the chunk and then stop it. You can just there that like the kind of issue comes into place. You just have to unassign it from the task. But if the task has a higher priority, that's kind of a tricky and because if you deactivate the agent, it gets deactivated immediately, and then you could get this kind of trimmed or aborted chunks. I guess Hobbs, you were searching for the progress bar, but you didn't find it, right?
But I didn't want to interrupt you, so.
Yeah, I think on the test server there were either the tasks are completed or they were not run at all.
Yeah.
That's why probably there's not really any. But otherwise, you just have to hover over the numbers, over the IDs. Then you should like get this. It's kind of a pop-up thing that you see the progress bar, but not on completed ones. It's only working on either not. Oh no, you don't have to click on it. It's But yeah.
I just tried it anyway.
but if there's no key space calculated, then it will not have the possibility to render such a progress bar.
Trying to think if there's any funny stories, things like that have come up over the years that this project started. Things we've seen or random going on. What was the highest hash rate that we've seen, or most amount of agents we've seen hooked up to one of these?
I think that was from EvilMog, right? When I think it was something in the teraHashes range, but I don't remember the exact number. I think you saw that as well, right? I think he posted it somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the highest for me as well. I think when EvilMog put that on a floor of a entire floor of a data center.
Yeah, I mean, you have to mention like it was NTLM, so obviously a fast hash because you wouldn't get that hash rate with something really slow.
Decrypt or whatever,
yeah. But it's I think there were like something 50 agents with each having like 8 GPUs or something like that. So it's kind of a nice system to play with. I wish I had it at home to run stuff, but it's definitely something you could heat your like multiple houses, I guess.
It's probably not in your price range.
Yeah.
Trust me, man. Having that much compute in your basement is not an easy task. I'll tell you that right now.
Even from your experience with like 30 AMD GPUs.
Yeah. I mean, burning 8,700 watts 24/7 it's a nightmare, man. It really is. Especially when you have a really small basement that is a 3-foot thick fieldstone foundation and you can't move heat anywhere. It's terrible.
Yeah, or you need even more power for an AC.
Yeah, I only had a 100 amp circuit in that house, and it was maxed out for months on end. Just terrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
good times.
Yeah, 100 amps sounds like a lot, but like regarding 110 volts, it's not that much. Like with 230.
It's
Yeah,
still quite a bit.
well, yeah.
Yeah, like
Not playing around.
easily calculate, it would be like 50 amps with like
Yep.
higher voltage. So, but it's
Yep.
it's still nice to have, but you could even need more. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the AMD days, man, those things were so power hungry, it wasn't even funny.
Yeah. And also back then the GPUs like used more power than nowadays, like per GPU, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
No, I mean, I used to deploy 1,800 watt power supplies. I'd put 2 of them on a single rig, and that was just how it happened. I needed to do it. Any plans for LDAP or second factor integrations? So there is a 2FA. You can use YubiKeys with Hashtopolis, but LDAP, I don't think that's been worked on for quite some time.
Yeah, the LDAP feature is on the list or on the wish list of people, and it's at the end there are a lot of things which could be optimized also for kind of, let's say, corporate environment. The issue with LDAP is I would need to like find the way to integrate that easily. I would need to think about ideally about kind of a standard how I want to plug in authentication systems into Hashtopolis, because so far the 2FA with YubiKey doesn't change that you have like the hash of the user and the password of the user stored on the instance of Hashtopolis and not having a token or something like that. For example, like you could also do OAuth things, but this just needs to be planned like carefully, that we don't implement something and then we have to change just because we add another authentication system. And so the other issue is that I'm not really familiar with LDAP systems or like setting up an AD to test with. So I'm not a heavy Windows user. So it's also maybe kind of this like pushing that issue a bit down the priority list.
Well, I mean, you know someone that can set something like that up for you pretty easily.
Yeah. The thing is that I'm also not sure like how good or if there are like PHP LDAP libraries around, which is also an issue that like we are kind of fixed on that PHP thing, because that is not necessarily needed. But the thing is, as long as we cannot separate the backend and the front end with that kind of big project, we are kind of stuck with PHP. But if we have a separate front end and backend, there's a possibility that we can like rewrite the backend with something else. But this causes like such kind of issues be pushed further to that point where we have this separation, and I hope we will have it at some point, but this we really cannot estimate when we will have someone like willing to spend I don't know how much time on creating basically a new front end to separate it from the backend. And also it would require some work on the backend to like provide the missing features for calls which are needed.
Yeah, it's crazy to think back when this project first got started, really.
Yeah. I mean, it started as a free time project, and it was at that point mainly just because we could need something like that and use it in our contests to distribute the workload, and then probably also other teams then use it after we published it. For example, Team Hashcat, which also then made use of it for certain tasks in following contests. And I think it mostly took off after we renamed it, so people could use it in corporate environment.
Yeah, and we have to thank EvilMock for this.
Yeah, I mean, basically he jumped in and said, yeah, it's an issue if he mentions the name of the tool they're going to use in their in yeah, and saying that to the customer, and was kind of like not really embarrassing, but maybe like sounding a bit strange that they like use tools which are like named strangely. I mean, there are a lot of tools around named strangely, but the issue here also was that most of the people didn't understand where the name was coming from, and they also like thought it's meaning something different because like as it's based on Hashtopus, it was just a kind of a funny thing to like make it Hashtopussy. But people then started to think it's hash2pussy, which is not what we intended on that point where we created the name, and this was then the reason maybe kind of having the requirement to change it, because people started even then like writing it like that is a capital H, a capital T, a capital P, and yeah, but like the name change was definitely something good at that point, I guess.
Yeah, it was always funny when I talk to my friends about this project and mentioned the name. So yeah, I had to explain it why this was, and that it's essentially a funny word play.
Maybe something we can talk about is also which is like wished regularly, and also I saw that there's like new like someone again asked if this would be possible, like estimated time of completion. The thing is that I cannot, the client of Hashtopolis cannot extract the estimated time which the hashcat itself gives. And also it's kind of difficult to estimate based on how long clients have for a certain chunk to how long does the task actually is, because in a lot of environments we have heterogeneous agents. So if one agent like completes a larger chunk in 10 minutes and another one a smaller chunk in 10 minutes, it's a bit tricky to extrapolate that. And the feature on the estimated time on Hashtopolis only calculates based on what is finished on the chunk so far. So that's why, especially at the beginning, these times are either not shown or it's kind of off from what the task in actual is going to take. After like a certain time run, it's getting more accurate. But I see that, I mean, at the end, it's at the beginning, it's very like off sometimes, and also it needs some time to calculate that better. I don't think that there's really an easy way to like improve this estimated time, but yeah, at the end on such cases, it's maybe also good if a person like knows a bit about how much certain things would take approximately on specific hash list. So for example, like if you have MD5, you know that you have multiple billion guesses per second, and you won't have that on a vercrypt or bcrypt hash. And also maybe something we didn't talk about so far, but which is probably something interesting, is the Hashcat library.
Oh yeah.
There are, as you probably know, there is like, you can use Hashcat as a library and like call directly Hashcat from your program, or for example from the Hashtopolis agent. Yeah, it's a C library, so you would need some kind of Python binding to make use of it in the Hashtopolis agent, but that's not undoable.
That's already done. There is already a project that does this. It's called PyHashcat.
Yeah, indeed. But the thing there is that there are other things which are a bit more tricky to do then. So for example, like piping, you would need to, like Hobbs was saying, named pipes should be possible to like pipe an output of a certain command into the Hashcat library then to give to Hashcat. And also the other thing is that if we would use the Hashcat library, we would need to make sure that this hashcat library is always up to date and it's always compatible with the hashcat versions we need to run with. For example, I mean, if hashcat updates, I already need to make sure that Hashtopolis currently copes with that, so that's possible. I like kind of can follow what hashcat is doing, and I can then update. So for example, like the upcoming hashcat, which is not released yet, but like in the beta, which is, I think it's now nearly 2 years since the last release of hashcat, or at least 1.5 years. Or am I wrong? No, it's already
It's
like
about
kind
a
of a
year,
long
yeah.
time
Yeah.
since the last release, and a lot of things changed since then, and I was able to do that in Hashtopolis. Especially the idea is that you can also run the old hashcat on Hashtopolis, so it's compatible with both. And I'm not sure how that would be possible with a library, or it would also be complicated because we then need to have multiple versions of the bindings and to have the possibility to talk to the different hashcat library versions. So it kind of also creates an overhead over what the current development is like giving me to like make it at least running with the upcoming hashcat changes. And also the big advantage I currently see from having basically calling hashcat on the command line is that as a user, you can fill in the command line whatever you want. Hashtopolis does not need to know specific hashcat flags. It doesn't need to know if there is a new flag or not, because it just will be handed over to hashcat, and then if you have a new hashcat having a new flag, you can pass it there, and I don't need to update Hashtopolis if there is a new flag in hashcat. So for example, the minus uppercase S.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole reason. You know, there's a lot of, you know, I don't know, I don't really want to say confusion, but questions that get answered. You know, when people at first, you know, dive headfirst into Hashtopolis is, you know, they're used to other tools kind of, you know, giving them, you know, a template or like, you know, select certain, you know, I want to do combinator, you know, and Hashtopolis doesn't do that. Hashtopolis, you know, makes you create the task. You actually have to give it the command line, and I think we do that for, you know, a couple of reasons. You know, one is, you know, the main idea Sage brought up is it's less work for us to develop, but at the exact same time, it gives you more freedom to do what you want. It's very hard for us to come up with all of your use cases for how you'd used Hashtopolis and why and how come. So we give you that freedom, but that, you know, but also that kind of takes away from the, you know, usability in a sense, you know, when you don't really know what's going on, or like you're first getting into it. So I think that's like one of the main reasons why we still keep that field super open, is just being able to let you do what you need to do. And on top of that, we don't have to stay on top of, you know, every little thing that Hashcat is doing, you know, with command line options and things.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah,
And also the having the like the UI itself, it's also possible that we can like create something which people can use which don't know Hashcat exactly. So there could be, for example, a new task page for let's call it the new page task for dummies. So where you could have this selection. So yeah, I want to have a combination. I want to have a dictionary attack. I want to have a brute force attack, and then selecting from, for example, predefined char sets, and then saying for length 5 and so on. This could just be an overlay over the what currently Hashtopolis is doing, and then just having it changing into the task itself. But I think having at least, there needs to be the possibility that people could enter it freely, because there are so many special things you could do with Hashcat, giving like the weirdest flag combination and so on, as long as Hashcat accepts it. Testing all this on Hashtopolis itself to see, for example, if it's a valid combination, and then parsing these flags and like giving that appropriately to the Hashcat library would be quite a lot of effort to put into.
I mean, I really like the idea of the Hashcat library. It's super nice, but it's really hard for us to integrate it. Another issue is, as of now, we can simply upload or set a link in the Hashtopolis server, where the agent downloads the Hashcat binary and all its modules and OpenCL kernels, etc. And with the library, we first of all, there are no precompiled DLLs or shared objects, so you have to build it yourself. And I'm not sure how easy it would be to have multiple versions of this floating around on your system. So yeah.
Yeah, I think of course it must be like included somehow dynamically and not like being installed on the system itself, but like
of course,
being like somewhere that you can say, okay, I want to use this library now, or I want to use this library. It's the same with like people asking, why can I not use the Hashcat version which is on the agent installed like as a system-wide Hashcat? It's just because their Hashtopolis does not have the control over to be able to update if there is an update, or also it's more difficult to like it would have to call it to find out the version and reporting that back to the server, that the server knows which version it is, to be able to show the user, yeah, you could select this version now. And also then you would need to make sure that it's consistent over all agents you have, because otherwise you run into problems that certain agents have different Hashcat version and it tries to run the same on it, which maybe is not possible because it's some new flag or something like that.
Adaptive chunk sizes. Oh, that's an issue that I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's also an interesting aspect. So what I definitely see possible is increasing chunk sizes, so that Hashtopolis adapts if an agent completes a chunk too fast, which sometimes happens, and this is due to benchmarking also not being perfect all the time. So if, for example, you configure a chunk time of 10 minutes and it just takes 5 minutes, which is not ideal because then we waste some time with the startup for each chunk. Like increasing it is easily possible, because if we see the chunk takes 5 minutes, we can kind of quite exactly estimate, okay, we have to double the work, then we should be at 10 minutes. But if it takes too long, shorten it. That's very tricky, because there are two reasons why a chunk could be longer than what you configure it to be. Either it's because it's really too much work, because yeah, for some reason the benchmark was off by saying, yeah, we can do more than what is actually possible on that task. But the other reason is that it's taking longer because it's not enough work. So as we spoke about this problem of distributing it over the GPU and using the GPU fully, if this happens on a chunk, it might be that you give it not enough work and it takes much longer than expected because it cannot like distribute it well over the GPUs. And the problem there is that if we say, okay, the chunk takes too long, let's reduce the work, we just make it worse and worse. So I agree, there is the possibility that we can add the feature that it increases the chunk size if it sees that it's kind of, let's say, more than 10% off the time we would like to have. But the other way around, that's not really something which is easily achievable, because then we would have to dig really, really deep into what Hashcat exactly is doing. And yeah, that's just not possible. And this is also the issue which FitCrack has, because FitCrack does it both ways. They also like shorten the work if it's taking too long. And there are cases where you would end in an endless loop, that it would just like shrink the chunk all the time and just end up nowhere, because at the end it ends up with a chunk size of, I don't know if it stops at 1 or it goes to 0, but shrinking the chunk size is really dangerous. That's not something which will work out well, I think. But increasing it is something I have on the list.
Trying to find some other older issues that might be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean, something also really funny would be if there would be an MDX find integration, but as there is the possibility to like include other crackers than Hashcat, it's just that these crackers need to have this specific set of functionality that you have a key space where you can split on, and I mean, otherwise, obviously, you cannot split a task easily if you don't know how you should split it. But MDX find handles that a bit different, so that's
Yeah,
why it's
and,
probably not happening
and
very quickly.
yeah, maybe I don't want to say too much, but I know there is something in the works. Probably not
Yeah.
Integrated into Hashcat, Hashtopolis.
Yeah,
But yeah,
of course. Yeah, there
we
is something
may
in the
have
works, but,
we may have a solution to distribute MDX find.
yeah, but it won't be Hashtopolis.
Exactly.
And also John, for example, currently does not provide the flags we would exactly need. But with John, it's something which would be doable, I think. But this also depends on the John developers if they like are interested in adding these flags. And I'm not sure. Maybe there are some cases where this is not possible, that John can really calculate a key space for certain things. But it would be really fun to have John also working with Hashtopolis, I think. Because like a lot of people are using John still, and John still has its usages for certain things. And it would be really cool if we would have both on board, basically.
Other things we could discuss.
Yeah, I think we covered like really most of the stuff which is currently around.
Yeah, I think I mean, we touched a little bit on the, downloading the malicious executable a little bit when we were talking about other things, but
yeah, I think like probably one thing which we didn't cover yet is that if you like put it again into like the kind of corporate setting where you probably have let's say a pen test where you have more than one hash, or especially more than one hash type, then you would have multiple hash lists. But probably you would like to have a way to like have them together so that you see, okay, these hash lists are one pen test for that and that customer, and the other ones are for another customer, and so on.
So like a grouping of different hash lists.
Exactly. So there's something like I would call it projects, so that you could have like a grouping of hash lists that they belong to a project, and you have a project where you can have multiple hash lists or other things like probably even nodes or just some information about the project that you can give it a name or something, and that you then know, okay, these hash lists belong together to that project. Which is, yeah, it's on the list. It would be quite some stuff to add, that it's one layer more on top of the hash list itself. But I guess especially for people which use it quite a lot on different things, it might be something useful to group.
Maybe we can touch base on the very not very utilized, or most people don't even know it exists, is the multicast file syncing to agents.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting feature. So to like start with, this feature is really intended if you have really large word lists, you would like to distribute quickly to a lot of agents. So we don't talk about like 2 or 3 agents here, because if the 2 or 3 agents just download this file, that's not a really big delay. But if you think you have a file of multiple gigabytes and you have 100, 200 agents, you can imagine that if the server has just the same connection speed like all the agents, that would take some time. So the multicast feature is intended that we just have to push the file through out of the agent base, out of the head node basically once and having then it distributed immediately to all agents. So it's basically using the UDP multicast feature. And there is a tool, it's called, I think it's UFTPD called, which Hashtopolis uses for that. There are some limitations on this because Windows is not able to cope up with kind of these things. The tests we did with Windows and retrieving UDP multicasts was just that Windows was not able to handle the speed it was incoming. So we could not reach like 1 gigabit for the distribution of the word list, and it failed constantly with Windows machines. That's why we say that you should only use it with Linux. And also you need to make sure that your network is properly configured, because one machine which is not able to handle the speed will slow down everything. And the idea is that you turn on the UDP, basically this UDP tool to listen on all agents. So when you say that you would like to wish this feature, the agents automatically will start to listen on the UDP, basically multicast. And then if you create a new task and there is a file used in there, the server will then send out this file ideally once. And then if all agents retrieved it, it doesn't need to send it anymore. But it will also do, if one agent fails, the agent will try to get it again. So the server will not be notified that one agent didn't got it and will send it again. But just if you have such a large cluster, this could be something you could benefit if you have large files and want to push them out quickly. But I think the usage is it's a very small field of usage where people really need that.
Yeah, your average your average user won't ever have the need for it, because you really need a data center full of machines to make really use of it.
Yeah, and also there are there are other workarounds for that. For example, that you just have the agents using a shared drive to access all the files. So they already have all files and they don't need to download them. Or you have another way of like pre-syncing the files with rsync or something else on the agents itself, that they like get them very easily and don't need to download them for a task. And also it's just, if you need to have like regularly such large files which come up, because if you have just one large file and this will be always your large file, it's also not worth the effort, because after the agents downloaded it once, they will keep it, and so they will never need to download it again, and then you don't need the multicast feature at that point. You just need to have, like, let's say for every new task you will have a multi-gigabyte file to run on, and a new one, and then maybe it's something useful.
Yeah, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel of things.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked for almost 2 hours, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone a lot better than I originally thought it was going to. So.
Yeah, and there at least were quite some questions in the chat as well. So yeah, if you have any leftover question, ask them right now. Because I guess otherwise we're kind of at the end, because there are not really that much topics we have to discuss or which are probably important.
Yeah, I can't think of anything right now.
I guess, how do people get in touch with us?
Yeah, that's maybe a good question. Yeah. So for like specific, if you already know it's an issue or like something where you're sure that it's something appropriate to put on GitHub issues, I mean that's the easiest way to like create a feature request or something like that. That you just create an issue on the repository and describe what you would like to have there or what your issue is. Ideally as detailed as possible, that it's easier to reproduce or to see what you exactly wish.
It always helps if you really make an effort in opening an issue, because otherwise we will have to ask you again, and yeah.
Help
Yeah,
us to help you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and if it's more like some questions you have, like maybe something you're not sure if you understood it correctly or something is unclear, you have two options. You could either go to the forum and post there and ask your question. We try to check it really regularly to like see if there are any new posts and answer your questions or help you with your problem. The other option is to use the Discord server we have and asking the question in there. That's also a place where where we quickly see if someone it's more on top.
Oh yeah, right here.
And
So basically check the GitHub page and you find all the information there, yeah.
yeah, and also if there's anything you would like to mention or say, you could also ping us on Twitter. There we also see it quickly, but I mean, like for certain things, Twitter is not that ideal to discuss. It's they're like a chat or a forum is like more appropriate.
Yeah, so I don't think there's really anything else that I can think of to touch base on. But yeah, I think this went over pretty well, considering we just kind of slapped it together and was like, let's do a thing. So I appreciate everyone joining. Thank you to those in chat, individuals watching. We appreciate it. And we hope you continue to crack hashes quickly.
Yeah, and also the video I posted, I think already quite some months ago, about like the setup of Hashtopolis. I still plan to do more videos on like certain things, how to do it. It's also just the problem of the time I need for. And but there will be some other videos coming as well, and also this live stream will just be available for other users to watch. I mean, it's more difficult for them to get an answer to the question because they cannot ask live, but I mean, they also can just like come up on Discord or the forum and ask if they have anything.
Great. So I appreciate everyone joining us, and stay safe, and take care.
Yeah, so maybe hear you another time or see you another time, and yeah, hope you enjoyed the video and also hope the others which will watch it probably. Yeah, so thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and
Bye.
goodbye.